So I started hearing about this Common Core when I was still substitute teaching, and I was like, wow, it sure sounds great. It sounds like, more rigorous, critical thinking, being able to, track your children across state lines, especially because I'm in a military area, I'm in Eagle River. All the talking points, I keep saying it's a bulletproof message, okay? But there's billions of dollars you'll see on the other side creating this marketing message. Then I decided to dig deeper and deeper and deeper beyond the marketing message, and I started becoming more and more and more alarmed. For 2 years as a state legislator, I tried to fight this. I tried to fight the regulations. I tried to shine light with the legislators. I pleaded with Governor Parnell to please get us out of this situation. It just kept coming faster and stronger and bigger and wider. And no matter what I did, I couldn't stop it. And so that's why this summer, I decided that I was taking it to the people. I was going to inform the people of what was going on, this complete transformation in education. I think this is either our 10th or 11th symposium. My very first symposium that I did, I told people, if you get 25 people together anywhere in the state, I will show up. We will show up on our own dime and inform you of what's going on. So far, that's what we're doing. There was only one exception to that, and we needed to go up to Fairbanks, and the state did pick up the Fairbanks tab just for the airline tickets, but we picked up the other expenses. But we're really trying hard to keep the expenses extremely, extremely low, and make sure that the people are empowered with knowledge, because that's why we're here. So I'm going to talk to you, why are we here? We're trying to do grassroots. We want to know what you as parents, as students, as grandparents, as teachers, anybody involved in education, what you want in education. What we're here to do is inform you of how we got to where we are right now. You need to decide if this is where we want to be, if you want Common Core, or if you want to help take a different direction. So these are the most common questions that we get. What is Common Core? How did we get to Common Core? Are we doing Common Core in Alaska? Are the Alaska state standards the same thing as Common Core? What about all this testing? Are the standards really that good? Are they internationally benchmarked? And how expensive is Common Core? So these are a few questions. We will have a question and answers. We'll try to do a little bit of questions and answers throughout, but we're trying to save some time at the end. Also, we will stay if you have questions that you just want to ask us one-on-one. First of all, I'm going to talk to you about what Common Core is. First of all, Lucy Calkins. Educators know who Lucy Calkins is. She's been involved in education for a long, long time. This is the Train the Teacher manual in Colorado. She's a very high-profile person in education. If you talk to Commissioner Hanley, he'll say we're not doing Common Core, but we are doing Common Core. You will see that. But why is Common Core such a big deal? I'm going to read out of this book, Pathways to Common Core. It said the Common Core state standards are a big deal. They were adopted by 45 different states. It represents the most sweeping reform of the K-12 curriculum that has ever occurred in this country. It is safe to say that across the history of America, in education, no single document will have played a more influential role over what is taught in our schools. It is huge, huge deal. People keep saying, oh, this is just gonna go away. It's just another bad math or whatever. This is a big, big deal. It is a sweeping reform of education. When I was on the NCSL, that's the National Council of State Legislators, they would tell us this has nothing to do with curriculum. We were kept told when they were speaking this through behind the scenes, it won't, there's nothing, it's just standards, that's all. Well, if you're in education, you know that standards drive curriculum. You can talk to anybody in education. Assessments drive curriculum. So pretty much Common Core is taking over the classrooms. Yes, is it only math, science, and language arts, but there's a huge movement. We also adopted the literacy standards, and it's a vehicle to get in all the other areas. There's also in our state school, they told me they would never adopt the next generation science standards. Within a month or so of the time they told me that, they did adopt the next generation science standards. So it is a huge, huge movement. across this state and across the nation, and there's actually links much bigger than that Nathan McPherson will get into. What is Common Core? Common Core is an attempt by Washington, D.C., special interest groups, and the federal government to herd all the states and our children into a one-size-fits-all national standards. Why is that a big deal? I'll give you an example of bananas. There's a certain kind of bananas you buy in the store. Pretty much all the bananas are the same in the grocery store. If those bananas get a virus and have a problem, then we won't be having bananas. The thing is, if this Common Core thing is a bad thing, then all of our children are going to be affected by it. So it is a big, big deal. I am not a believer in a one-size-fits-all education. All kids are different. The way they learn are different, and we've got to have a lot of different options, and we've got to have local control. Who is involved? I wish I could get in deep. It takes about 8 hours to really give you a good course on this. We're going to talk really high level, but these are the people behind it. Achieve, the National Governors Association, and CCSSO. So the Governor Parnell and the NGA, so NGA, CCSSO, those are ones you really need to. These people came up and did a walkthrough in Alaska, Achieve, to test our standards. Okay, what are the 4 big pillars of the Common Core? First of all, it's the standards and assessments. You need to have the standards, and they will tell you that we got to do our own standards, and I will show you that that's not the case. The data system, they will deny that a data system is part of the No Child Left Behind waiver. What they're not telling you is it was a prerequisite to get the No Child Left Behind waiver, and that was through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, and we came in on window 3, so we came in at the tail end, and we got I-3 grants, and those grants are very intense, and that's how this data system was set up. It's set up in the Alaska Commission of Post-Secondary Education, and I'll get more into that in just a few moments. Next, it's great teachers and leaders. This is the accountability and assessments that are going to be going on in the schools starting next week. And also the teachers are held accountable through the evaluation. Then there's a turnaround also that's part of this. In the No Child Left Behind waiver, it specifically talks about getting rid of teachers and principals who aren't showing progress. Right now it's the English language arts and the math. And a lot of the districts have specifically, like Anchorage School District and many others, have actually adopted the Common Core and not hiding from it. The State Board of Education adopted Alaska Academic Standards, which are almost identical. So Race to the Top. Have any of you guys ever heard of Race to the Top? Raise your hand. Okay. We got the Race to the Top money through the I-3 grants here. But basically, this is the federal government's overtake of education. It's a set of content standards that define what students know, what they need to know, and that are substantially identical across the states. They have to adopt all of the standards. They can add 15% additionally, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're taught, that they're tested on that additional 15%. Who owns the standards? We as state legislators were told, oh, we can change the standards whenever we want. We own them because they're the Alaska Academic Standards. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. So if you change a standard, then you have to change the text, then you have to change the teacher training, then you have to change the assessment. I mean, it just didn't make sense. So I called a baloney on them over and over and over again. And sure enough, then we dug deep and we found out, guess who? It's the CCSSO that owns the copyright. So who is the CCSSO representative in Alaska? Commissioner Hanley. So it's his organization, Commissioner Hanley's organization, the CCSSO and NGA, the National Governors Association, that owns the copyright. You cannot change these without going through them. And it says the Common Core standards cannot be altered without permission from the holders of the copyright, NGA and the CCSSO. Moreover, they must be used to promote the Common Core initiative. Who else is behind this? Bill and Melinda Gates. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is so heavily behind this movement. And I want to give credit right now to the Alaska Principles Project. They helped allow me to use a lot of their slides, and I would recommend their website highly. They do a lot of research on this, but American Principles Project. Jane Robbins has spoken several times for us, and she's speaking across the nation. But I do want to thank her. And $250 million has been spent. This is outdated, so it's much more than that now, to encourage the use of these standards by the Bill and Melinda Gates. It's a Gates-led, not a states-led effort. They pledged $350 more the next few years. Since 1999, NGA and CCSSO has received more than $100 million to create and support these national standards. So these people that the NGA, the governor, and the commissioner, Gates heavily influenced them. I can tell you when I became a legislator, within 2 weeks of the time I became a legislator, I was swept off my feet when they found out I was Vice Chair of Education and sent me to Boston and wined and dined with excellence in education. I know what it's about, but I was one of those resistors. I went a second time and just realized they really were just trying to get you to go along, to get along with these standards. This year I just refused to go because I just so adamantly oppose this movement. This is Michael Petrelli, the president of the Fordham Institute. Many of you have probably heard of the Fordham Institute. He says it's not unfair to say that the Gates Foundation agenda has become the country's agenda in education. I think he should go start his own schools. I don't think he should be messing with our public schools. But the organization paid some of the things Pearson. Please pay attention to Pearson. Pearson owns Power School. Power Schools, for a lot of the data is collected. So that's an organization you need to follow very, very carefully. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce ended up getting involved. The Foundation for Excellence, that's where I went. That's back in Boston. That's the Jeb Bush organization. That's why I will be completely opposing him. The National PTA, the NEA, the AFT, AASA, they come down to Juneau quite often, and hundreds of colleges and universities. They're also going into our universities. They're spending about $500 million so far to standardize some of the things at the university. We've got to have diversity and freedom of thought at our universities. So this really concerns me. The stimulus bill. How many of you guys remember the stimulus? Okay, great old stimulus. Okay, that was the lead when in 2008, when it was a lot of economies got depressed because of the big crash. They used that as a golden opportunity to get involved in education. They spent $4.35 billion through the U.S. DOE, so U.S. Department of Education, and they made the race to the top. The federal government has spent almost $2 trillion since 1965. There have been minimal improvement in test scores, and there's been a significant increase in spending. We just don't see where the federal government involvement has improved education. How many of you have heard of the Elementary Secondary Education Act? Raise your hand. Have you heard of No Child Left Behind? Same thing. Okay, you can use that pretty much interchangeably, okay? This act was passed back in about 1965, and then it was reauthorized by President Bush. What they were trying to do is help fund education, and it was a war on poverty. And like I said, we've spent almost $2 trillion and just have not seen the improvements. In 2001, President Bush mandated statewide standardized testing. That's when the standardized testings came in. The AYP, the annual yearly progress, that's what everybody gets all excited about. The reason why they wanted is 2014, 100% of the students in 100% of the districts and 100% of the schools had to be proficient. In Eagle River, we had some amazing schools. We're some of the top performing schools in the state. A lot of our schools were about 95%. We were considered failing. That's why they wanted, it was an unrealistic expectation that the federal government